A 9-year-old male chimpanzee living in Uganda was caught by researchers masturbating with a plastic bottle, the first wild chimp to use a man made object as a sex toy on record. Researchers were not surprised by the behavior as they had just left him alone in the room with the latest installment of Chimps Gone Wild.
A new memoir claims that a White House aide would calm Donald Trump by playing show tunes. His favorites were the ones written by Rogers and Hannity.
A spokesman for Bill Cosby says the comedian believes pedophile rapist R. Kelly was railroaded during racist sex crimes trial and claimed that his appeal will be successful. R. Kelly said that he appreciated the support and also wondered if Cosby had contact information for Keisha Knight Pullum.
Ooh. A federal
She's like in her 30s now. It's okay.
I think she's in her 40s, 50s.
Yeah, close enough.
A federal judge agreed to free John Hinckley Jr., who shot Ronald Reagan in 1981. Now they're just trying to free him from his conservatorship from Jamie Spears.
Leaked Facebook documents show it seems tweens aged 10 to 12 are, quote, untapped wealth and Facebook has spent years trying to get around federal laws banning harvesting of data for under 13s. Clearly, Facebook understands that the future of the platform is the unvaccinated.
Misinformation about using ivermectin as a COVID treatment has made work difficult for veterinarians who rely on the drug for treating animals. Veterinarians are asking people to please stop coming into their offices wearing a pig nose and going, oink, oink, me want ivermectin.
Even if I didn't like that joke, I felt like the punchline made it worth saying. And finally, due to rising costs, discount retailer Dollar Tree has announced plans to sell more items above $1. Plans are already underway to adjust the signage from Dollar Tree to probably going to need a second mortgage if you're serious about going home with these Melmac plates with Disney princesses on them. Tree. Welcome to Biden time. We appreciate everybody who joins us. We know we have a forever sliding scale of when we do the show. This week, I'm going to blame my disease-ridden child, and by that I mean she has a cold. I really meant germ-ridden, but that's why I have the interesting location, the interesting start time. But Tamra, I appreciate you being flexible, and to our audience as well. So, I want to dive into the headlines as always. But, we mentioned in passing that last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess you were in Portugal. And what I meant to ask is sort of just a general, what do you see as some of the differences in terms of protocols for COVID going into establishments? Is it about the same as the US? Obviously, traveling is one thing. When you're in another country, I couldn't tell you the last time I've been in another country. So I was just sort of wondering, where does, and it's anecdotal evidence of two countries, the US and Portugal. But what was it like there in general in terms of, their approach to the pandemic?
And the UK, because I changed planes in the UK, and they have. So I'd say the biggest difference was the traveling portion itself, because the UK and Portugal both required what's called a passenger locator form that you had to fill out ahead of time, and that locator form, it was quite extensive because you had to put, the flight that you're arriving on, the flight that you're leaving on, where you're staying, how long you'll be there. Um, and the purpose of that is because those countries use them for um, contact tracing. I don't know why that phrase can never stick in my head. Contact tracing. The United States does not require. They didn't require that type of uh, uh, a locator form for that sake. So, and I guess, obviously the United States is a much larger country. It would be a lot more difficult for them to do something like that, but still it's not a bad idea. And you also had to have a proof of negative COVID test for every country. I had to get tested in Portugal in order to come back to the United States. It cost about 100, a little over 100 euros, which was about 100. I think it was about $125. It cost me in order to get the COVID test. And that was annoying too, because of the fact that you're only showing, they email it to you and then they tell you to just screen cap it on your phone so that you can easily pull it up. But it's a very simple, it's just like a white paper with words on it saying, your test is negative. It's something you could easily just almost make in your notes app. And the only person that looks at it is the gate agent. So there's
Right.
absolutely no verification of, whether this is true or not. So, I don't know. I almost considered on the way back saving myself like the money and the hassle and just like making my own little negative COVID test. That's horrible. I would never actually do that probably, but I was just like, it would have been so easy. Like, I'm sure people are doing that.
Or you could have saved yourself, you could have spent only half as much and slipped the gate agent 50 euros, and been like, well,
Probably.
it's at least, just
Probably.
like, yeah, this,
Yeah.
look at this one from another country. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's different from state to state, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. And I was just curious about all that. Well,
But as
your
far as
travel
being
sounded.
Yeah, as far as being in
Go ahead.
Portugal though, like things were about the same. Like you know, as you were walking around outside, some people had masks on, some people didn't. When you went to a restaurant, you had it on, but then people would take it off when they'd sit down, and it was about the same as what I see here in Los Angeles. And this was in like a small fishing village in Portugal. It wasn't Lisbon. It wasn't any major cities. It wasn't near any major cities. So no real difference there.
Were the fish wearing masks, or are they just going to take their chances and they don't
The fish were in
believe in
full
their
hazmat
effectiveness?
suits.
Yeah, I think that's what you want. That's how
Mhm.
your seafood to be presented. Well, your trip
Exactly.
sounded delightful. President Biden has canceled a trip to Chicago, which is another glamorous place. He wanted missions, and he's having to spend a lot of time working on this budget. There's a $3.5 trillion budget, and we're getting very close. Maybe next week we'll start a shutdown countdown clock. We're getting close to another government shutdown, and this is when you run into the problem with having the evenly divided Senate, where you have 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans. Kamala Harris is the tiebreaker. So technically, you are the majority party, but it is only the technicality, because Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, I mean, just they get to go to the White House like every day. And I don't know, I'm just going to guess when they sit down with White House officials, maybe President himself, do you think that they get to sit in the fancy dining room or Jersey Mike's?
I think it's wherever they want. So yeah, they strike me both as more of a Jersey Mike's type, a uh, DC Cracker Barrel crowd. Both of them are that
Oh,
seems to be up their alley. I'd say that, yeah, like the first of all, I have to wonder if Vegas is taking bets at this point. What's the over under on when this infrastructure bill is actually going to get passed? But um, I mean, how long have we been talking about it now? It seems like just months and months. Um, I think it seems like right now the issue is not Republicans and Democrats. I mean, obviously it is, but it's Democrats, progressive Democrats versus centrist Democrats. I mean, that's the biggest hangup right now, because we've got Sinema and Manchin who are holding out on passing the infrastructure bill. But the most frustrating thing about it is, especially with Sinema, she's being very vague about why it's too expensive, but with we're not really getting full details on what how she plans to compromise. And I think it just shows that for Cinema and Mansion, they both care more about their reputation as being a centrist, more so than actually making progress on moving something forward. Because Manchin also saying that the bill is just too expensive, and also I know that West Virginia is, of course, he has to keep the coal miners, uh, uh, his finger on the pulse of the coal miners. So he's not very progressive when it comes to any sort of like green, climate infrastructure. Understandable for the way that his state runs. But I think that both of them should, if they're going to insist that they're so centrist, need to be a little bit more transparent about what exactly in the bill they would like to see, what exactly these talks that they're having with Biden are over. Um, they both say that they are against the they will not, um, they don't want any sort of reconciliation bill passed. Meanwhile, the progressives are insisting on a reconciliation bill. So they're just, on complete total opposites, and it's the Democratic Party that's standing in the way of, you know, the Democratic Party is so divided right now on this bill that it's we're being held up every which way till Sunday.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you brought it up in this context because, I mean, at first the thought was, oh, they're just holding it up for attention. But then you also realize that they are, and we're talking about Manchin and Cinema, they're in a very unique position in a good sense where you can call attention to things that you think are problems with it. But as you pointed out, you have to actually point to what the problems are. So if there is something that is in it that you don't think should be, something that's missing, this is a great opportunity to really get the attention. And odds are pretty good, unless it's something crazy, you're probably going to be able to get it thrown in there, or taken out or whatever it is, you know, and just basically just tell me what it is that you need. And I guess that's that's what they're doing. And I don't know, I'm just feeling like President Biden could really use a win somewhere in the near future. It doesn't seem like it's been a great few weeks for him. I mean, we go back to Afghanistan, and I mean, that's really when it seems like it's all unraveled since then. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a
Approval
moment. But
ratings
yeah, in
gone way
terms,
down.
yeah, yeah, no, exactly. And I think that the over under on when this thing gets passed, I don't know. I mean, I think, you have, when it is this divided, you really need to have your team on your side, all the other Democrats. And if you don't, then you're not going to have many victories in the near future. And something tells me that when we talk next week, it will not be that this is resolved and how great that went and good, attaboy, Uncle Joe. I don't think that's the case at all. And just sort of to transition over to Afghanistan. Uh, Now, I always thought his name was General Miley, and then I heard a clip of him being called General Milley, and I'm like, is that just somebody talking down to him and trying to, like, give him a more feminine sounding name? I've heard his name is General Miley. In any case, that general, whatever his name is, was speaking yesterday. And there was a lot of this conversation that his comments were that the Afghanistan war was lost, which I think you can certainly point to that. You can say that about conflicts where you basically leave without the job being done, which that's fine. But there is this idea from something that came from the hearings yesterday that President Biden was given advice that they should have left 2,500 troops behind instead of pulling them all out. So, and and then Richard Blumenthal, who obviously has distinguished service of his own, he is pointing out that the Pentagon top brass, he said that there's nobody in charge. So how do you think that these hearings are going? And is everybody just trying to point themselves at each other, point fingers at each other? Or what are your takeaways from the fact that we're having these?
Well, it certainly does not make Biden look good. I mean, every part of it is damaging to Biden's legacy. Um, he to say that we should have left troops in Afghanistan. I mean, that does make sense, but the thing is, like, when would we eventually pull them out? Wouldn't the Taliban take over? I mean, it seems like the Taliban is going to be poised to move in regardless. So, what could the United States have done to have prevented that from happening? I mean, that's that as the American public, like, that's what we were told for the past 20 years, that this whole thing was about, was to, help dismantle the extremists that are trying to control this region. The reality is that the whole purpose of this, with this military industrial complex, this was just an extremely profitable war for military contractors who have been making insane amounts of money for the past 20 years. Um, you know, and we have made no progress in the region at all. So for Miley to say that we should have left some troops in the country, yes, that seems reasonable to those of us, who are not who don't have any sort of, like, intense intelligence background. But, like, but again, I think we need, if he's going to say that, I think we need a little bit more details as to, like, okay, so then what would have prevented leaving troops in the country a little bit longer? How would that have effectively, prevented the Taliban from moving in right away when they would eventually be pulled out as well?
Yeah, I think it's delaying the inevitable is really what it seems like. And
Yes.
I mean, I think that, you know, unless you're going to leave, like 25,000 troops forever, I mean, at some point, I think that really the way that this will be remembered is the fact that it happened so much faster than anybody thought it would. It happened faster than they said that it would. And by the way, Storage Yard Resident, thank you for being in the chat, says that he agrees with you about military spending. And I think that, when they're not making their opinions known for the sake of scoring political points for one side or the other, I do think you had bipartisan support for getting out of Afghanistan. Now you can point to how and how quickly and when and all that. You can certainly make those points, but I think at least privately, everyone knew that there's the amount of money being spent on here wasn't going to change the end game at all. And
I believe
yeah,
that
I
is the
think that
first time Storage Yard Resident has ever agreed with me on anything.
I
Mark
think
that
that
in the
there might
Biden
be
time
there.
history books.
Yeah, that might be the first. Although I think he liked the he liked Evangeline as well because in the California recall, because of the simple fact that she didn't like daylight savings time, which made me interested in. By the way, if if you want to run on an issue that catches my attention, doing away with daylight savings time is it. But in any case, I think that, look, I'm sure you and Storage Yard Resident could disagree about what money would be better spent on than military spending. But a lot of times you just look at it, and obviously you need to spend money on your military and keeping your country safe and protecting your allies and your interests. But the amount of money, I mean, we're just moments ago talking about, what is it, $3.5 trillion budget. I'm not well read enough to know what percentage of that and what amount is military spending. But the idea that spending 3.5 trillion is like, all right, that's a little high. It's a little bit more than we usually spend, but let's just go ahead and run with it. And I think that that's really what this calls attention to is you have 20 years in Afghanistan. You don't have no one wanted these results. Well, except for maybe the Taliban, but none of the administrations wanted these results. So, yeah, I think that if maybe if Democrats had a little bit of actual power instead of sort of the like basically having power by a whisker in a couple of different places. And if Republicans are smart, this is something that they could really call attention to. But I don't know that they're necessarily in the stop military spending business, especially not if it's something that seems like it would help President Biden. But I don't know. I think it's one of those things that we hear about all the time about military spending, but realistically, I don't think it's going to change that much. It just seems like it fluctuates a little from one administration to the next. But that's I'm sure Biden is spending at least the same as Trump did.
I
If
mean,
I'm
I
just
believe
guessing.
he's always historically voted in favor of more military spending. He has never been very progressive when it came to military. I mean, we've
Right.
always even when we've had Democratic presidents, they've always been more conservative when it came to military spending, meaning they were always more money. So, I mean, until the day comes that we get a progressive president into office, which is a long way off, I think this is we're going to continue to fund military contractors.
Who if it only required one vote to be president of the United States, and you had the vote, and it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who ran last year, who do you think is best equipped for these times? Let's just take President Trump out of it, because we obviously know how qualified you felt he was. But apart from the former president, do you think that somebody like Bernie or Elizabeth Warren, do you feel like their approach would actually be what we need in times like this here in 2021?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm very much in favor of Bernie Sanders. I would say Elizabeth Warren would actually be better in the office because of the fact that she has a way of presenting things um, just in her speaking style. I think she's less inflammatory than Bernie Sanders. I think Bernie Sanders
That's fair.
pisses people off more. I feel like Elizabeth Warren has a more kinder, gentler way of getting points across. Obviously, people who are very much against any sort of progressive agenda would disagree with either of those people, but you know Elizabeth Warren's grasp on American economics, I mean, it's 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 just unbelievable. We would be in if Elizabeth Warren had more power right now, the the economic structure of this country would be so different, so much healthier for working Americans, for the middle class would be so much stronger if Elizabeth Warren had more power.
Well, don't look at me. Everybody knows that I was a big Bloomberg guy based solely on his debate performance last year. I didn't like him, and then he did so well in those debates that obviously I had to change my tune. And look, here's the thing: you have people on the right who would say that Obama was, but I don't know that we've had a truly progressive president. So it would be, in terms of the way that they mean that with a capital P. It would be interesting to see. I don't know that we will see it, perhaps in our lifetime, but interestingly enough. I mean, I think some of Trump's policies were some of the more conservative that we've had in a while, even though, you know, 20 years ago he was a Democrat fundraising for Hillary Clinton. So I feel like in general we continue to be a mostly centrist country, and depending on the way the wind's blowing at a certain time, it goes a little bit more one way and then a little bit more the other. But I think I would be interested in seeing, if we had the crystal ball and we could see what a truly progressive would accomplish, and would in I don't know, you would think that they probably wouldn't raise the deficit so much because of the amount of taxing that would go on. But I guess we'll have to see. I do want to talk about, we mentioned some of the protocols earlier that Tamra encountered in terms of traveling in the age of COVID. And look, the media is always very quick to let us know the bad news when we see it, but it was that COVID cases are continuing to decline across the country with a 26% drop over the last month. And 5 states have now said that they've given at least one vaccine dose to 3/4 of the population. Getting closer to where we thought we were going to be a couple months ago. You're having a lot of people who feel as though this is the best choice for them. You have people who have gotten sick and recovered, and then they go on to get the vaccine when they're eligible. people because like, oh, this was really bad. This wasn't the flu that everybody said that it was going to be. And I think that it doesn't help when I don't know about you, Tanner, but on my own Facebook feed are plenty of people explaining the why it's bad to get vaccinated. It's still out there, and I like for the most part you're finding the majority of the country. I think that they've said if we get to like 80% of the country being vaccinated, we'll be in at least decent shape. But we'll still get those boosters, like Uncle Joe did earlier this week. Do you feel that there's been some, basically over the course of the summer, now that fall is creeping in, and everybody's going to be, I mean, not here in California, but in other states, people are going to be spending a lot more time inside, that they're starting to think like, you know what, last year was pretty crappy. Let me go out and get these. When I'm getting my flu shot anyway, let me go ahead and get the COVID shot as well. Have you sensed, just anecdotally, maybe just people on social media? I mean, I know you're mostly a TikToker, but TikTok. Sorry, I misspoke. TikTok superstar. My apologies. But what are
I
you seeing
wish.
in terms of? Hey, Storage Yard Resident follows you there. That's all you need. And if Scott and I ever get on TikTok, I promise you that we'll both follow you. But in any case, have you noticed attitudes changing over the course of the last few months? I feel like we're in a different spot than we were at the beginning of the summer.
Well, it's hard for me to say because I personally don't have interaction with anti-vaxxers, but I'd say I am optimistic because of the fact that from TikTok, I have posted a lot of pro-vaccine sketch comedy, and which gets commented on by people on both sides, and a lot of people had commented on one of my videos particular. I think I mentioned it before. It was a video where I was saying like, oh, this is what Democrats think that anti-vaxxers are, when they're really sick in the hospital, they're voicing their woes. I shoulda, coulda, woulda, why didn't I listen to the vaccine? And I'm saying like instead they're just doubling down and being like, you're still not jabbing me with that Clinton vaccine, whatever craziness that they're going to say.
Yeah,
And like a lot of people commented on that video, like, actually, no, I work in the nursing profession. They really are, at their deathbed saying like, please give me the vaccine. And we have to tell them it's too late. So it does make me feel like the ones that did get sick and somehow pulled through are now wanting the vaccine. Also, I believe there was this week or last week in Breitbart, there was an article about how this wasn't the point of the article, but they made the point that, more Republicans are dying from COVID than Democrats. So think about how that's going to affect the midterms and the next election. So I think that is a point that more Republican uh, um, mouthpieces and also politicians are bringing attention to more, is that like, this is affecting that party more than this is affecting the numbers of the Republican Party far more than it's affecting the numbers of the Democratic Party that already has this very slight lead. So, keep that in mind. I hope that would encourage more Republicans who are against being vaccinated. But then, it's, I have to stop myself every time I say Republicans don't want to be vaccinated, because there are a large majority of the hippie organic granola, like, I'm not vaccinating my child because we're all
sure.
about a natural, there are plenty of leftists who are anti-vaccine as well, and I feel like those are almost probably the hardest people to get through to, because whereas an anti-vaxxer Republican is probably just staying in line with their party. So as long as they're, if once Mitch McConnell says like, no, it is important to get vaccinated, they will go on board with that. But then the person that is sort of this like, I'm going to drink, organic um, asparagus water that I bought from Gwyneth Paltrow's website. It's just like anything anything goes. It's all just up in the air based on what what whim that person wakes up with in the day. So I would almost wonder if that's the harder person to convince.
Well, I think you're right that that person, you're much less likely to change their mind, because they have bought into an entire lifestyle that is, that they don't even want their kids vaccinated for polio or mumps or whatever, and it's just sort of like that is their approach, and it's not really politically based. It's just more of an entire outlook, and I think it's easy to point at Republican voters and conservatives because of the simple fact that the popularity for some of the hosts on a network who, by the way, as a corporation mandates employees be vaccinated, so their on-air talent of course are all vaccinated, but then they go on the air and they tell everybody why being vaccinated is bad. It's almost like, look, you don't want to make too light of people who pass on, but you have all of the conservative hosts who over the summer passed away because they refused to be vaccinated. They talked the talk, and they walk the walk. They were not getting vaccinated, and you have all these other people who are like, I mean, yeah, I had to get vaccinated, but you shouldn't have to. And it does sort of bring up this idea. There's a lot of attention that's been paid to the NBA specifically this week, but just in terms of sports in general. I mean, the interestingly enough, according to an article, I guess I saw this on the Daily Mail, uh, 90% of players in the NBA have gotten, I think it means that they've gotten at least one shot. And I mean, that sounds high because, predominantly I like to spend my time watching baseball because I'm a glutton for punishment as a Mets fan. That's what that makes me. But it seems like that, and it's individual teams, the numbers are much lower. And we're getting into a situation where if you play on a team and your team is going to play Golden State or the Knicks, the Lakers or the Clippers, you're going to be in venues where you will need to be vaccinated. So then the players who are unvaccinated are like, well, I guess you don't get to have your star player on your team. And I feel like that seems to be like a problem that will enter into like a labor dispute. But that's what jumped out at me, that it seemed like such a high number of NBA players, and maybe it's just because when the baseball season started, it felt like any team that had more than 50%, it was something to brag about. What do you think as this conversation has gone on over the last few months, Tamara, about athletes being vaccinated?
Yeah, I was really surprised that LeBron was vaccine hesitant for so long. I believe he's now fully vaccinated, but
Yeah, that's what he says. Yeah.
people that are outspoken, um one politically one way, and to find out that they are vaccine hesitant is surprising. Although it's always different. um uh you know the A lot of the reasons for the Black community to be vaccine hesitant, has to go with historically, how the United States has treated the Black population when it comes to medical experimentation in the past. So there are different reasons other than just general misinformation to be vaccine hesitant. Even though I do believe that, I saw this morning the New York Times said that um, African American population is like 70% vaccinated. The Latino population is about 75% vaccinated, something like that. So I guess those numbers are going up. I can't even venture a guess why a professional NBA player would not be vaccinated, would choose not to be vaccinated at this point, unless it's just kind of a thing where they're just not paying attention to. I mean, it's hard to say, for those of us who are constantly, we have the CDC's latest recommendations popping up on our phone
Right.
all, hours of the day, but a lot of people aren't like that, and they really just aren't as consumed in it. um you know, that I'm a baseball fan too, but I feel like baseball has a lot more, very outspoken right-leaning players that the NBA doesn't seem to have that necessarily that same contingent. So it does surprise me that a lot of
Yeah,
professional
sure.
NBA
I mean,
players
just
are.
the sheer number of active players on each roster and just the demographics of it, I think you can see a lot of that. And I don't know, I think it'll be interesting. I went to a movie screening last night because I like to pretend I'm still in show business. And it was the first time where they wanted to see your proof of vaccination to be able to go. And I hadn't dealt with that even to go to concerts. I know some places they have, but that was the first time I'd had to do that. And of course, what I was really upset about was that the invitation said that I was going to have to leave my mask on for the movie, and I thought that meant no snacks. And they said, "Oh no, you can take your mask off to have snacks."
Mm,
And then I'm like, "All right, well now this is going to be a good movie." So
mm.
that's the important
Oh,
thing.
I did just go to Palm Springs last weekend, and
Yeah,
that was the first time where every restaurant, every bar, you had to show your proof of vaccine to go into any public place, and that was I hadn't experienced that. We're not doing that in LA, so that was
yeah, I mean,
interesting.
I guess, and yes, I'm generalizing, but I think that the feeling is that the population of Palm Springs is a little bit older. So I would think that I can definitely see why that would be able to get put into law there. I mean, it's logically what you would think about, what those of us who don't live in Florida would think like, well, isn't the population of Florida older? You would think that they would be embracing the vaccines, but not necessarily the case. And yeah, I think that it gets complicated, and we've talked a lot about employees that have to get vaccinated or lose their jobs, and I'm sure that there'll be more instances of that to come up. But especially, I would say basketball and the NFL in particular, just the amount of contact you have with other players. Yes, there's contact in Major League Baseball, but it's brief. There, it's not it's not as close. You're not as just sweaty and
Outside.
breathing in the same way. Yeah, exactly. So, I think that it'll be interesting to see how many holdouts there are and who is the first like really big star who is forced to sit out an important game. I mean, what if one of these states that mandates it is the where the finals are, and then that person on the team, even if they decide like, oh, I'll get vaccinated for the playoffs, you don't have enough time now. So it's sort of one of these things that runs interestingly in the background and completely off topic because we're talking about sports. Are you a fan of a specific team, Tamara? Because I sometimes think that you might be, but I'm not sure. Because for those that don't know, Tamara and I are both on this very exclusive LA Underground Baseball Network Facebook group. Filled with some really funny people, by the way, rooting for different
Yeah.
teams. But so our because the season's about to end, and that's why I'm asking you if you root for a specific team. Um, and see, and there, who was that bobble? I hope it wasn't Trevor Bauer.
Oh God. Oh Lord, my Trevor Bauer bobblehead. I've already left that one. I got a Don Mattingly, which this one is
Very
my
nice.
favorite.
I know that I because the problem with bobbleheads is that they never really look like the person. So I'm like, is
Yeah.
that Earl Hershiser? I couldn't tell. Is that Clayton
I've got a
Kershaw?
Garcia Para,
Yeah.
which is funny, and then
Oh,
I've
sure,
got
of
a
course.
Kershaw.
Very nice. Well, yeah, and
Um,
then that's the interesting thing too, is that the Dodgers can win like 105 games and still lose to the Cardinals in the wild card game,
yeah.
and that's why that format is exciting. And I don't know. My team was mathematically eliminated last week, but as I tweeted, I didn't care what math said. They've been out of it for like about 6 weeks, so it's nice to have other things to focus on and other teams and maybe some good stories in there. And I am not a fan of the St. Louis Cardinals by any stretch, but a team wins 17 in a row at this time of year. That's just crazy, So interesting to see how that all plays out. One other thing that I wanted to ask you about, it's something that we referenced at the top of the show, but there's this report from a book coming out that former President Trump, there was someone on staff referred to as the Music Man, who, whenever he was about to lose it, they would play show tunes. Apparently, Memories from Cats would be specifically calming, which is interesting because if somebody walks into a room and plays anything from Cats, I'm much more likely to get angry than I am to get calm. But my question for you, Tamara, is if you did have a money man, or just say money person, and by money I mean music. Sorry, if you had a a music man or a music person, what song do you think would help, or maybe even a couple of songs that come to mind? What would help soothe you and we are about to go into a fit of rage?
Oh boy. Me personally,
Yes, you personally.
wow. I'd have to say maybe some surf rock. Let's get some
Oh,
old,
like Dick Dale.
Link Ray, yeah, Dick Dale,
Okay.
something like that. That's always welcomed. Um I was just thinking, I thought you were gonna say Trump, and I was trying
Yeah.
to think of a joke this morning about like what specifically he loved to hear, and I just thought of it.
Oh, I want to hear it.
Melania, I just met a girl named Melania. I'm not great. I don't know show tunes the way most people do. I'm not
I,
extremely
I
a
don't know that it's a most people. I think there's
or
certain
not. Yeah,
pockets.
you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's certain pockets of people in entertainment,
some
and
people.
yeah, it's but yeah, I think for me, while I would probably want to pretend that it's something cool and cutting edge, I would say "Bust a Move" by Young MC is probably going to put me in a good mood. I would hope that somebody could put Marvin Young MC himself, on retainer, so that he could actually perform the song live in the room whenever I
If
was getting
you
particularly upset.
want it,
That's
then
right.
you got it.
Oh, in any case, I wanted to end on a lighter note. I appreciate everybody who's in the live chat. Storage Yard is just hanging in with us while we're on it all these different times. Scott sent an email that it doesn't seem like his travel's going to slow down over the next couple weeks, but we will be here for you, just sometimes at different times and sometimes on different days. But Tamara, if people want to keep in touch with you, how do they do that?
Hey Tamara on social media.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And of course, subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel for this show when it comes on at its varied start times. And of course, our show, Marvel Movie Talk, which we did earlier today, talking about the penultimate episode of What If. And I do reference the movie screening that I went to last night, which was Venom 2. There Will Be Carnage, and we will see if there is carnage at the box office over the weekend. But that's all the time we have for this week. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.